there, you're watching World News Program. I'm Yasin Rikti, and here's what's making the headlines. On the 84th day since the outbreak of the American Zionist war on Iran, the Pakistani army chief arrives in Tehran for new talks. Iran confirms that its basic demands include its right to peaceful use of nuclear energy. The US Secretary of State says the slight progress has been made in the peace talks. In Lebanon, martyrs including paramedics in new Zionist massacres in the south of the country. Hezbollah announces targeting strategic military sites and occupation gatherings. The Lebanese army responds to the American sanctions and emphasizes that its officers are performing their duties professionally. In Gaza, there are martyrs and wounded in new Zionist raids on the north and south of the Strip. The World Health Organization warns of a severe shortage of medical equipment, and the United Nations says that the health sector is operating under catastrophic pressure. Hello there and welcome back to the details of our program. First up in our news, Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir arrived in Tehran on an official working visit. Iranian agency ISNA said Friday that the trip is part of mediation efforts between Iran and the United States, but noted it does not necessarily indicate a final or confirmed agreement framework. Iranian media report that Iran's foreign minister met Friday with Pakistan's interior minister to discuss proposals to end the Iran-Israel conflict. Pakistan is said to be facilitating dialogue aimed at establishing a framework for de-escalation. The meeting in Tehran follows recent diplomatic exchanges, including a reported new US message on negotiations. Pakistan has announced a 5-point joint initiative with China aimed at supporting efforts to end the conflict involving Iran. A foreign ministry spokesperson said Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will visit China on Saturday to discuss the initiative. He added that China supports Pakistan's mediation efforts to help de-escalate the conflict in the Middle East. Iran's foreign ministry has rejected media reports on details of negotiations, including nuclear enrichment issues. Spokesperson Ismail Baghai said talks are currently focused on ending the conflict, including developments in Lebanon. He added that reports on Iran's nuclear program are speculation with no basis in fact.
The Iranian nuclear program, including the Tehran reactor, began as a result of cooperation with the United States and European companies before Russia completed the construction of the Bushehr plant following Germany's withdrawal. It is wrong to claim that the abundance of fossil resources makes nuclear energy unnecessary for us. From an environmental perspective, the world seeks to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. As a member of the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, Iran has the full legitimate right to possess nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, so long as it adheres to its international commitments in this regard.
Iran has reaffirmed its right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy, saying talks with the United States have focused on its right versus US demands for restrictions. In an interview with Vice News, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said Iran's nuclear program has always been peaceful, according to International Atomic Energy Agency reports.
What we demand is our right under Article 4 of NPT to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. And our nuclear program has been always peaceful in accordance with IAEA reports. So this is one of Iran's demands. On the contrary, the United States has been always demanding Iran's foregoing of its inherent right under NPT.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Friday there has been what he described as slight progress in ongoing talks with Iran. Speaking ahead of a NATO meeting in Helsingborg, Sweden, Rubio said uranium enrichment remains a key issue in the negotiations. He added that the core elements of the U.S. position have not changed, stressing that Washington firmly opposes Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon.
Having a good deal. There's been some progress. I wouldn't exaggerate it. I wouldn't diminish it. There's more work to be done, but look, yeah, there's been some, and that's a good sign. I'm glad they said that. We're not there yet. I hope we get there. The president would prefer to do a good deal.
Marco Rubio said Iran establishing a system to collect fees for passage through the Strait of Hormuz would be unacceptable. He warned that such a move could encourage similar actions in other strategic waterways around the world.
Iran is trying to create a tolling system. It can't happen. If that were to happen in the Straits of Hormuz, it will happen in 5 other places around the world. Why would countries all over the world say, well, we want to do this too? Not to mention how vital and critical that strait is to every country represented here today, but frankly to countries not represented here today, particularly the Indo-Pacific.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said Iran's actions affecting freedom of navigation have a direct impact on alliance members. Speaking at a press conference during a NATO foreign ministers meeting in Helsingborg, Sweden, he said ministers agreed on the need to ensure the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and expressed support of it.
This direct assault on freedom of navigation and global commerce impacts us all. It is important that countries are coming together around plans to ensure that the strait can be open for transit, including by moving essential assets to the region. This is another clear reminder of how security challenges are increasingly interconnected.
Iran says 35 ships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz over the past 24 hours after receiving the necessary permits. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it provided safe passage for navigation despite what it described as insecurity caused by the United States in the area. Lebanon state news agency says 11 civilians, including medics, have been killed in Zionist strikes in southern Lebanon overnight and into Friday morning. It reports an airstrikes on Dir Kanun al-Nahr in the Tyre district killed 6 people, including paramedics, a journalist, and a child, with others wounded. 4 medics were also killed in a separate strike on a medical post in Hanawiyeh, while 1 person was killed and 2 injured in a strike on a vehicle in Nabatiyeh. Lebanon's health ministry says the death toll from the Zionist strikes since March 2nd has risen to 3,111, with 9,432 people injured. It also reported that 22 people were killed and 35 injured in the past 24 hours following strikes across several areas of the country. Hezbollah in Lebanon says it targeted what it described as strategic sites, as well as gatherings of Zionist soldiers and vehicles in southern Lebanon and northern occupied Palestine. In a statement on Friday, the group said it struck an Iron Dome platform at the Branit base in northern occupied Palestine using a drone, claiming a confirmed hit. It also said it targeted a Zionist artillery position in the town of Addassiyeh in southern Lebanon with a drone, causing what it described as material damage. The Lebanese army says its personnel remain committed to their national duties regardless of external pressures. It added that loyalty is to the institution and the country only, and said it has received no official information about allegations that an officer leaked intelligence data following recent U.S. sanctions. The U.S. Treasury has sanctioned 9 individuals in Lebanon, accusing them of facilitating Hezbollah activities and undermining state sovereignty. A Palestinian has been killed and others wounded in a Zionist drone strike on Gaza City's Zaytun neighborhood. The Palestinian news agency said the body of the victim and several injured people were taken to Al Ahli Hospital after a quadcopter drone targeted civilians near Al Shams Mosque. A Palestinian has been killed by Zionist occupation drone fire in northwest Rafah, southern Gaza, according to local sources. Reports say a quadcopter drone opened fire on a shepherd in the Al-Sharkush area near the so-called Yellow Line, resulting in his death. The World Health Organization has warned of severe shortages in medical supplies, saying they are preventing hospitals and health centers in Gaza from operating at full capacity and criticizing restrictions on the entry of essential aid. Speaking in Geneva on Friday, the WHO representative in the occupied Palestinian territory said 53% of hospitals and 58% of primary health centers in Gaza are only partially functioning due to acute shortages of medicines and equipment. The UN Humanitarian Office says Gaza's health system remains under extreme strain, warning it could collapse without urgent delivery of essential supplies and spare parts. It says the water crisis is worsening, with most families relying on trucked water due to damaged infrastructure, while displacement, overcrowding and disease continue to increase, especially in shelters in southern Gaza. The World Health Organization has raised the public health risk level of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of the Congo to very high. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in a briefing on Friday that the risk of Ebola transmission in the country has been upgraded from high to very high, while regional risk remains high and global risk low.
It will be a big mistake to underestimate, especially with this strain, Buntibugyo, which we don't have the vaccine. So I would really encourage everyone, let's help each other. We can bring this thing into control, because the good thing is that we know how to put it in control. We just need to work together.
The United Nations has allocated about $60 million from its emergency fund to help contain the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. On Friday, UN Emergency Relief Chief Tom Fletcher said rapid action is needed to stop the spread, noting that conflicts and heavy population movement are making life-saving operations difficult. The Libyan Presidential Council welcomed the final statement issued after Thursday's meeting of Libya's neighboring countries mechanism in Cairo, attended by Egypt, Tunisia and Algeria, along with the UN Special Representative for Libya. On Friday, Libyan Presidential Council head Mohammed Al-Manfi said the statement supports the Council's position that a Libyan-led political process backed by the United Nations is the best way to overcome the current deadlock. The ministerial meeting of Libya's neighboring countries brought Algeria, Egypt and Tunisia together to reaffirm their support for a comprehensive political solution to the Libyan crisis, stressing the need to unify state institutions and pave the way for presidential and parliamentary elections that fulfill the Libyan people's aspirations for stability and development. Here's Miriam Zian with the full report.
In a renewed effort to help end Libya's prolonged crisis, the neighboring countries mechanism once again called on all Libyan parties to engage in inclusive dialogue centered on the interests of the Libyan people. Following earlier meetings held in Algeria and Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, and Tunisia renewed their call from Cairo, highlighting the strong historical ties and shared destiny linking the three countries to Libya. They stressed that protecting Libya's unity, sovereignty, and national resources depends on reaching consensus through a fully Libyan-led political process involving all parties. The tripartite mechanism of Libya's neighboring countries, an initiative proposed by Algeria as part of its continued efforts to support stability in Libya, also stressed the importance of dialogue, free from foreign interference, noting that outside involvement has only deepened the crisis and hindered political settlement efforts for years. A Libyan-led solution remains the cornerstone of the initiative. The three countries underlined the urgent need for a comprehensive political settlement under UN auspices and with the participation of all Libyan stakeholders. They said such a process should help end political divisions, reunify state institutions, and create the conditions needed for simultaneous presidential and parliamentary elections that reflect the aspirations of the Libyan people. The three neighboring states among the countries most directly affected by developments in Libya also renewed their call for the withdrawal of all foreign forces, foreign fighters, and mercenaries from Libyan territory, stressing that ending outside interference is essential to any lasting solution. Algeria has long defended this position in line with UN and African efforts that view a stable and united Libya as a key pillar of regional security and development across Africa.
The General Caliph of the Tijaniya Faida in Senegal, Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Niass, said ties between Algeria and Senegal go beyond diplomacy and history, describing them as a bond of shared spirit and common destiny. In remarks delivered on his behalf during an honoring ceremony at Jamal, Algezair, he expressed the readiness of the African Islamic Union and the Tijaniya leadership in Senegal to strengthen cooperation with Algeria's religious and academic institutions to promote moderation, Muslim unity, and stronger ties among African and Islamic peoples. For his part, the rector of the Great Algiers Mosque, Mohammed Mamoun Al-Qasimi Al-Hassani, said that honoring Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Niass is a tribute to the values of scientific loyalty and spiritual kinship.
فإن تكريم فضيلة الشيخ محمد الماحي إبراهيم نياس
Honoring Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Niass is a tribute to the values of scientific loyalty and spiritual kinship, as well as the Islamic unity and the deep bond that has long joined Algeria to Senegal and to all the peoples of the African continent. Algeria, under the leadership of President of the Republic, has realized that spiritual security is part and parcel of national security, and that the battle of awareness is no less important than the battle of the borders. That is why strengthening the national religious reference and deepening scientific and spiritual ties with its African belonging has become a firm strategic choice.
Russian officials said at least 4 people were killed and dozens injured, including children, in a Ukrainian drone attack targeting a student dormitory in the Luhansk region overnight Thursday to Friday. Russian media, citing Russian Human Rights Commissioner Yana Lantratova, reported that 86 teenagers aged 14 and 18 were asleep inside Strabolis College of Luhansk Pedagogical University during the strike, accusing Ukrainian forces of carrying out the attack. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described the incident as a barbaric crime and called for those responsible to be brought to justice. Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukrainian forces carried out a strike on a Russian oil refinery in Yaroslav, about 700 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, in the latest in a series of attacks targeting Russia's energy infrastructure. In a post on Telegram, Zelensky said Ukrainian defense forces launched overnight attacks Thursday to Friday against targets linked to the Yaroslav refinery. He added that Ukraine is bringing the war back to Russia, calling it a form of justice.
Last night, Ukrainian defense forces carried out operations targeting the Yaroslav oil refinery, about 700 kilometers from our territory. We are bringing the war back to Russia, and that's only fair. They also carried out strikes on specific targets in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, and we are preparing further long-range and medium-range actions in response to Russian attacks that target our cities and local communities.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the West, led by the United States, is seeking to preserve its dominance and support NATO's eastward expansion. Speaking Friday at a meeting of the International Cooperation Committee of the United Russia Party, Lavrov said the West is trying to create as many problems as possible for its rivals. He also accused Western countries of generously funding and encouraging what he described as Nazi policies. Poland welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement that 5,000 American troops would be sent to the country. Speaking Friday on the sidelines of a NATO foreign ministers meeting in Sweden, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski thanked Trump and said the U.S. military presence in Poland would remain roughly at its current level. From Algerian universities to entrepreneurship in Niger, the story of agricultural engineering Aisha Ouassou reflects Algeria's long-standing investment in African education and training. Today, she leads a women's cooperative in Niger, transforming local agricultural products into a growing agri-food business and turning academic opportunity into economic impact. Here's Marwa Blaiwar with the full report.
At the international exhibition, Aisha Ouassou proudly presents the products of a cooperative bringing together 40 women from Niger. But her story began more than 2 decades ago in Algeria when she arrived as a student pursuing higher education. Today she returned, this time as an entrepreneur leading a women-led agro-food project in her country. Aisha, an agricultural engineer specializing in human nutrition and food processing technologies, describes herself as a product of Algerian African educational cooperation. She studied at the National Higher School of Agronomy in Algiers, where she received the training that later enabled her to launch her own agro-food business in Niger.
I'm an agricultural engineer specialized in human nutrition and food industry technologies. I can say that I'm a product of Algerian-Nigerian cooperation. I received my training in Algeria, where I studied at the National Institute of Agriculture in Harrach in Algiers. After an absence of nearly 22 years, I returned once again to Algeria. This time I came as the president of a cooperative made up of 40 women working in the agri-food industry sector. So we are a cooperative composed of 40 women and 1 man, active in food processing industries. These are some of our products: spices and aromatic herbal teas, and we're currently expanding toward other products.
Driven by ambitions to expand her business, Aisha says Algeria has developed significant expertise in food processing industries, particularly in pasta production and packaging technologies, sectors that remain a major challenge for many food producers in Niger.
Algeria possesses significant expertise in the production of pasta and food products, while we can provide you with certain local products. In our country, we face a problem with packaging materials, which is a challenge affecting most of our food industry companies. I believe that Algerian-Nigerian cooperation can achieve a great deal, as you can contribute to the development of our manufacturing sector.
Speaking with deep gratitude, Aisha says Algeria represents far more than a country where she studied. For her, it became a second home, one that provided knowledge, experience, and confidence she now invests back into her own community, alongside dozens of women working within the cooperative.
Thanks to Algeria, which is for me like a second homeland. It helped me become an agricultural engineer and provided me with the knowledge and expertise that I'm investing today in Niger. And if today I represent a cooperative of 40 people, it is thanks to the knowledge and experience I acquired, which I was able to transfer and put to use in my country.
Aisha's journey reflects a broader message, increasingly highlighted through Algeria's African engagement. That investment in education and training is also an investment in long-term development and regional cooperation. And for many African graduates, Algeria has become more than a destination for study. It has become a space where skills are built, opportunities are created, and cross-border success stories begin.
We have reached the end of our news program. See you in a moment for our special coverage show.